Hello, and welcome to the Counselor tutorial for managing patient insurance information. We'll begin within a patient profile and then select the Insurance tab. Within the Insurance tab, of course, you can see any current or inactive policies for this patient. In this case, there are none in place, but we'll be adding some here momentarily. To add a new policy, just simply click on New Policy or select that option from the drop-down menu, New Insurance. Once you select that option, of course, it'll bring open a window where you can enter that new information. We'll start here on the payer. Now, if you know the payer, you can simply just start to type in the payer and it'll show you a list of matching payers. You can choose from the list right from here, or alternately, you have the ability to choose from the master list. Now, Counselor has over 4,500 payers with their payer IDs in the system. So you have the ability, of course, to search through and find the specific payer that you're looking for. Now, beyond that, you do have the ability to rearrange this list. So if you have particular payers that you use more frequently, you can go through the administration section to rearrange this list to get your most common payers at the top. I'm going to go ahead and just choose one randomly here. It's important to note that if you do have some of your more common payers listed at the top, doing that typing search I showed before will also show those being first, so out of alphabetical order if you've already rearranged the list. All right, so we'll move on here to the type. Very commonly you choose commercial insurance unless you're talking about Medicare, Medicaid, or other scenarios like that. But let's go ahead and choose that. Then we're going to go ahead and put in the insured number. That is actually all you need. You certainly can add more if you wish, but you're not required to. You also have the ability, of course, to change the relationship depending on what the specific scenario is for that patient. In this case, we'll leave it as self. We'll go to the bottom here and click Save. Once we do so, what you'll see is that now off to the right, you have the ability to add images of the insurance card. So we have the info, now let's add the images. And like you've seen elsewhere in Counselor, there is the ability, of course, to scan in images directly. So this would be likely you putting the insurance card right on the scanner glass or through a feeder, and you'll see a pop-up where you can then crop the image and get it directly in here. And so you do that twice, once for the front and of course once for the back. You also have the ability to use the mobile app Snapshot to take a picture of the insurance card. That will also load it directly in, as well as webcam, or you can upload it if you already have an image of the card itself. All right, so once you have the images front and back of the card, of course you can make any notes as well in this section. So if you, for example, if the patient has a hearing aid benefit related to this policy, you can add any notes along the way. Really the focus of this screen is we want you to be able to get all the relevant information that is related to this policy in one place. So if there's ever a concern about this policy 2 weeks down the road or 2 years down the road, you can go to one place to see that information. Here in the status section, you can change whether this is an active or inactive policy. We're going to go ahead and leave this one as active, but we're going to come back to this and I'll show you the process for inactivating. Because the goal here, once again, is that within the Counselor Insurance tab, you see all of those policies, past and present. You have the ability to note when this was last reviewed. So if a patient who is a long-standing patient and you check their insurance, you verify it, or you kind of check the eligibility, you want to make sure you track when you've noted that. So you can go ahead and add a date. That's an optional field, of course. At the bottom here, you can see there's the eligibility check. This is where you have the ability to determine in real time whether the information you have here is accurate. Right, because it's very easy to have errors in this part of the process. Perhaps the patient handed you their old insurance cards instead of their new insurance card. Perhaps we provided the wrong or entered the wrong payer by accident. Maybe we had a typo on the insurance number, right? Very easy to make errors at this point. And of course, if there is an error made, it can cause significant challenges down the road. So, a claim gets rejected by the payer because we had a typo. And fixing that later on can be a significant hassle. Whereas if we detect this right now, you can cut that hassle out right at the start and make the correction. So what we'll do here is we're going to go ahead and click on the eligibility payer list. You can go ahead and I'll just pick something random here for the sake of time, and then retrieve the status. Now, Counselor has a direct integration with two clearinghouses, ClaimMD as well as Apex EDI. If you utilize either of those systems, you'll have the eligibility check available. Now the system, the view here does vary depending on which clearinghouse you'd be working with, but they essentially work in the same way. They're going to check to make sure this policy is valid. If it is not, in the case we just saw there, then you can go back You can double check the number. You can double check the payer. Ask the patient if these are most current insurance cards. So that way you know right away. And of course, this is all being done prior to any products or services being provided to the patient. All right, now once we've run this, we can also bring this up later on and see it again. You can redo this in 6 months if you want to check again before the patient comes in. Yep, everything looks great, and then you go ahead and update the last reviewed to say that you had double checked on this. So very easy to monitor this. And then when we jump back to the patient administration screen, what we're going to see here is there is the policy in place. As I referenced before, you can add as many policies as you want: primary, secondary, tertiary, active, inactive. So if this patient has a secondary policy, great, go ahead and add that. Counselor by default will set this as secondary because there's already an active policy, a primary active policy in place. However, if they have two primaries, you can change this, right? Totally up to you. So very flexible there. So you'd go through the same process to add that secondary policy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and let's take a scenario where maybe in the future this policy becomes inactive and we want to add a new one. So when we find out the patient has new insurance information, you can just jump right into this policy and say, all right, this one no longer applies. Let's call this one inactive, and then save. And then we're going to go ahead and add the new policy. Now in this case, because this is the only active primary policy, it did set this as primary. And then we can go through and we can do a quick search. This one has been bumped to the top of the list. So it's out of alphabetic order because we're saying this is one we use more commonly. Okay, just as an example. We'll set the type, we'll put in the insurance number, and we'll click save. Right, and then once again we can collect more information. We can perform the eligibility check. I should mention also Counselor has a tracking feature at the bottom for prior authorizations, so that comes into play. You have the ability to add in a prior auth and data related specifically to that prior authorization. Okay. Once you've made those changes, of course, you can click save. That will lock in those changes. Takes us back to the main screen, and now we can see we have one primary payer and one inactive, I should say one primary policy and one inactive policy. So once again, the focus here is that you have the ability to capture the information in one place, and then if anything comes up regarding these policies, you have the ability to see it in one place. All right, entering this information, of course, is critical because as you move forward with the patient encounter, it gives you the ability for this data to flow forward, so into the claim creation process. There's no duplicate entry. You've already checked to make sure this is an eligible policy, so when you go to submit your claim, you're submitting that with a high degree of certainty that yes, this is accurate, versus submitting a claim and not sure if everything is correct. So once you have this information in place, it gives a great deal of confidence moving forward that you'll be able to submit clean claims. If you have any questions about the policy creation process, please let us know. We'd be happy to walk this through with you. Also, just to mention at a high level, you do have the ability to review these. So under business, there is the policy reporting, the policy report generator, and that gives you the ability to look across all the policies across all of your patients. And you can do filtering and all kinds of really neat things there. So I'll say if there's ever an instance where perhaps you have a payer that maybe you're going out of network with, you'd have the ability to very quickly identify all the patients that have that policy, perhaps create a communication to those patients, or just if you want to see, how many Blue Cross Blue Shield of a certain state do we have in our patient database, you can access that information very, very quickly. But once again, if you have any questions about how to enter or manage patient insurance policies, please let us know. Give us a call, email us, live chat us. We are always happy to help. So thank you very much for joining us for the Counselor tutorial for managing patient information.